Do you need this, Dr. Mindy? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, welcome. If you can't hear me, let me know. I do have a very loud voice, but sometimes you guys in the back cannot hear. I have a couple of videos I'm going to show you that I will put the mic on because I think you'll be able to hear it better. So, for you guys that don't know me, I'm Dr. Mindy. This is my home away from home. I actually have two homes. I have this home and I have my real home, but that's where I spend the majority of my time. I have been here 20 years. I'm 46 years old. I'll tell you a little bit about my journey throughout tonight's talk, but I started practice when I was 26 years old. Back in those days when people walked in the door, they would look at me and I looked like a little baby. And I would often get questions. People would ask me and go, "How old are you?" That was like almost the first thing that came out of every new patient's mouth. So people don't say that anymore, which is awesome. Maybe they think it now. So let me start off with a couple of things tonight. The first is that I rarely do this, but I want to take a moment to just thank my amazing staff. I thank them one-on-one a lot, but I will tell you, I will tell you that I have been in business for 20 years. I have had a lot of staff in that time. Some of you guys were here when I had other staff. This group of 4, Sam included, is our intern. They show up every morning with a smile on their face. They literally never complain. I have never heard them complain. They're always super excited to help. They're super excited to be here. Whenever we have to travel to a seminar, they're very excited to go. I honestly feel like I am so blessed to have them. And they work really, really hard. Like, Jessica's answering emails at night. I don't know if you know, Dr. Carol commutes about an hour, hour and a half every morning to get here, and goes home another hour, hour and a half. I've never heard her complain about the commute once. So if you know, when you're in here over the next week, just take the time to thank them because they work their fanny off for you guys and they do it with love, and I just feel really grateful to have them. So I wanted to start off with that. The other 2 things I want to start off with is the first thing, I'm going to switch this around a little bit. I want to hear just by like a few of you, by a show of hands, why are you here tonight? Why on Cinco de Mayo did you choose to come to this talk tonight? Nancy?
I'm here to get re-inspired.
Okay, awesome. Great. I love it. We're going to do that. Nadia?
I learn something new every time I come.
Awesome. You're going to learn a lot tonight. A lot. Okay, anybody else? Hello, Chris.
Hello. Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, no worries.
I love hearing it again and again. And I love the way you explain things.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
I brought my daughter because I want her to hear it also.
Great. Yeah, and tonight, I'm going to share a little bit of why I chose this information tonight. It's a combination of what I've been going through with patients for the last 20 years and what I've been going through personally for about the last 5 to 6 years. And what's going to happen tonight is that you're going to have a lot of information you're going to want to go home and share with people. And that's always a tricky situation because I love that you bring people, because when you go home and you share it with people, there is going to be an immediate reaction from people who don't understand the information that are going to want to reject it. And they're going to say, where did you hear this from? Where are you getting this information? And they're going to want to kind of break you down. So I'm trying to arm you with as much information as I possibly can so that it makes sense, it locks into your brain, and you know what you need to do. So the reason I chose neurotoxins, why we are going to talk about heavy metals, we're going to talk about things that are going on in your mouth, we're going to talk about exposures in the environment that you've been exposed to that are affecting your health, is because honestly, I have to talk about it. And what has happened in the last 20 years, to give you guys a little bit of a perspective of what I've seen with health, is when I was first in practice, we would literally adjust people 4, 5, 10 times and their problems would go away. It doesn't matter what it was. If it was headaches, if it was fatigue, it was like, 1996, I think I graduated, was like the greatest year to be a chiropractor because you just adjusted people and things went away. And then about 8 years, 10 years into practice, I started adjusting the same conditions people had the same problems, but they were not going away. The symptoms were not going away. And I kind of scratched my head and thought, am I doing something different? What's changed with these people? And so I started to investigate, and at that time, I looked around in our environment, and I saw that we had laptops were pretty prevalent. People were on laptops a lot. Everybody had a smartphone at that point. That was about the beginning of smartphones. Most people had been sitting at computers for a long time. So everything you see in here, the traction, the home care, all of the rehab, I put that into place at that moment because I thought, okay, well, if everybody's walking around like this all day, then I gotta figure out a way to strengthen these muscles and make it so that when I adjust them, they hold their adjustments better. So I implemented that, and sure enough, now we were at like a 99.9% success rate, like everybody was getting well again. So I kind of thought, okay, great, we're good. Then another 4 or 5 years went around, and all of a sudden I started noticing people with chronic pain were not getting out of pain. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Why do I have this section of people in my practice that doesn't matter what I do, they're not getting out of pain? And so that's when I discovered the gut. And I started looking at leaky gut syndrome, and I started looking at candida, and things that I knew for my own self because I had been on this journey with chronic fatigue. Those of you who read my book, I wrote about that. So I knew that the gut played this important part. But what I didn't know at that time was that what was happening to everybody was that they were exposed to genetically modified foods. And the glyphosate was starting to create a destruction of the microbiome in the gut, and it was creating something called leaky gut syndrome, which is one of the #1 things that leads to chronic pain. So I started doing, okay, I'm going to adjust people, I'm going to do the rehab, I'm going to do home care, and I'm going to fix the gut. And we're going to be good. So I did that. And it was very successful for many years. We were good, and I was like, okay, I just need to add that little gut thing in. And then I started to work with weight loss with people. And as I started to do weight loss, I could put one person on a diet, and they would just immediately lose weight. And then I would put somebody else on a diet, same concepts, and they weren't losing weight. And I was like, okay, at first, I'll just be honest, at first I thought, well, maybe they're lying to me. Like, maybe they're cheating and they're lying to me. I mean, I'm just being transparent. So I thought, well, that's probably what's going on. But then it started being more and more and more people. And I know the principles of weight loss work. So I'm like, what am I missing? And I started to think, okay, what could I do? And we worked with the leaky gut. That helped a little bit, but I was still missing some piece of information. Then I started getting a whole slew of people in my office that had depression and insomnia and anxiety. And this has been over about the last 1.5 or 2 years. And thyroiditis, oh my God, we never ever heard about thyroiditis. And now like every 3 patients that come in have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And it's like the doctors look at it like it's an allergy. Like, oh, it's just like you have allergies, you have thyroiditis, you have depression, you have insomnia. These are all normal things that you're supposed to have as you age. And I just kept kind of scratching my head and going, I'm missing something. Something to my protocol is not complete. And at the same time, unfortunately, I started to, my own personal self, I started to experience some waves of depression. And I am a very upbeat, you guys, what you typically see with me is what you get. I am not Pollyanna-ish. This is me. I'll be happy when I'm happy. I'll be sad when I'm sad. And I started to get waves of like wanting to cry. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I don't ever feel like that. What is going on with me? And then I experienced my first anxiety attack. I'm like, this is crazy. So of course, I go and I call my mom and I say, did you have this when you were, this was about 1.5 years ago. So when you were 44, did you notice that you had these symptoms? No, I never experienced any of that. So I call my older sister and I say, are you having any of these, are you having depression, anxiety? You know, it's weird because my people, if I brought the Pels family in here, we are an upbeat, happy bunch. I'm like, are you having problems with this? And my sister said, no, not me. Come to find out that my sister was on antidepressants. Yeah, so I applaud her because she reached out 2 weeks ago and asked me to get off, how she could get off of them. So she's 2 weeks getting off of them, which is really cool. I'm doing really great. So then I went to my girlfriends, and ladies' night out, we're sitting around drinking wine, and I'm like, do you guys have anxiety? Do you have depression? Are you getting hot flashes? What are you experiencing? And all of my friends were like, yeah, it's perimenopause. That's what it is. It's perimenopause. You're in your 40s now, Mindy. It's perimenopause. And I'm thinking, perimenopause? Is that like a new version of menopause? So, ironically, I was at a science fair where my son, a science fair, he had his science project out, and I happened to be standing next to one of the other parents who was an OB at Kaiser. Very well respected in the community and the school that my son was at. And so I turned to her and I said, Heidi, I'm just baffled because I eat well, I exercise, I have great genetics, I'm getting adjusted. Like, why would I have perimenopause symptoms at 44 years old? And she turns to me and she said something that will change the way that I look at women's health or the medical profession, the way they approach health forever. She turned to me, this is a very well-respected OB at Kaiser, and she said, Mindy, I have an office full of women like that. I have an office full, and this is what she said, my medical textbooks have failed me. I have no idea what to do with these women. And I said, are you putting them on medication? And she said, yeah, I am, but it's not working. I'm going to show you tonight why it's not working. I said, are you changing their diet? She said, no, can you help me with that? So now she wants my help trying to change their diet. And we created a conversation that went on for several months. Come to find out that she was even more lost than I was. So for the last year and a half, I have been searching. I listen to podcasts, I study, I listen to experts, I do everything. When I can't solve something, I'm not the type of person that goes, I can't solve that. I am obsessed with finding the solution. This is why you guys, when I work with you, I have one goal. You either get well or I will die trying to get you well. Because I will find you the answer because I know that the body heals and I know that the answer is out there. And so what I finally came upon were neurotoxins. And I'm going to teach you tonight what neurotoxins mean and what it means to you. What is really hard about the information that I'm going to present tonight is that the people who have been inflicting, putting these toxins into you, exposing, I don't know the right word, exposing you to these toxins are people that we respect. Our doctors, our dentists, there are areas in both of those fields where we have an abundance of neurotoxins that have affected the brain, and unfortunately, it's just the way it is. It's just the way that our system is working. I'm going to show you some things in our drinking water. So our city council people, our politicians, like people that are in authority. And so I've been looking at this information and thinking, at first, honestly, I thought, I can't bring this to you guys because you're going to leave here and you're going to be depressed. And then, as I studied it more and more, I went, I have to bring it to you. So my goal over the next hour is to give you the information that I know, to show you a path where you can get these toxins out of you and you can get your life back. If you have depression, if you have insomnia, if you're not losing weight, if you have thyroiditis, if you have chronic fatigue, if you have chronic pain, if your hormones are off, every single one of those things are due to or have a neurotoxic piece to it. So the cool thing is the information I'm going to give you puts you in the driver's seat. I'm going to show you at the end some strategies and some tests that we're going to run on you that we can actually find out exactly what's going on. I'm such a huge fan that you don't guess, you test. You find out exactly what's going on. But know that as I go through this information, some of it you may reject. And it's easy to shoot the messenger, and I'm okay being shot at and knocked down, but I do ask that if you reject what I say, that you go and do your own research, because you will probably find what I ended up finding. So the first thing that I want to teach you is that when it comes to life, really, but I'm going to say when it comes to health, there are what we call 97%, 97%ers and 3%ers. So most of the world is doing health in this 90% what I call in the box. In the box health looks like this. I'm fine until I have a symptom. Then once I have a symptom, I'll deal with it. And when that symptom appears, I'll take a medication, I'll do a surgery, and I'll look for a quick fix to make the symptom go away. This is what 97% of America, this is how they deal with their health. And they don't want, has anybody heard that song written by Macklemore called Kevin? I can't believe it's not. Go home and it's not popular enough. It needs to be more popular. It's a song called Kevin. Look it up on YouTube. Anybody know Macklemore?
Yeah.
Okay. So he wrote a song about how with our children, we have been teaching them medication, 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 so that when they get older, we teach them that you've got a sniffle, take a medication. You've got a headache, take a medication. You got a problem, take a medication. That's what our society has taught them, so that when they get older, they're always looking for something from the outside to put in because that's what they have been taught. Well, that's what's happening to most America, is they're searching for that outside in. I see it with patients even when it's easy to want the natural supplement that's going to cure you. And yes, supplements are less toxic than medications, but it's not that one supplement that's going to cure you. There's a multi-pronged approach that needs to happen to bring your health back. So what I would consider most of you that I know in here, you guys are 3%ers. And 3%ers say, I don't want to buy into this system anymore because this is where cancer is building. This is where depression is going high. This is dementia. We're going to talk about dementia and Alzheimer. This is where all of these cases are getting higher, is in this 90%. I choose to do it different. And what happens is we've only got 3% of the people right now. So when you go and you are a 3%er and you're out there eating organic, or you go to a party and you bring your own food, and people are like, what's wrong with you? Understand that you are a 3%er. So I was at 20 years old when I had chronic fatigue. I decided to go gluten-free. And it was not only miserable as far as the food we had access to, but it was embarrassing. I mean, I'm not like the type of person that really wants to rock the social boat. But you would go to someone's house and you just kind of were like, you didn't want to offend them, but basically you had to be careful about what you said, or you didn't, because they would serve you a plate of pasta and you'd have to kind of push it away. Nobody at that point in time knew gluten-free. Gluten-free is getting better. It's getting, we're getting more access, which is awesome. But 3%ers, what they say is, I do not care what the rest of the world says. I do not care if the obstacle is too hard. I do not care if if my insurance doesn't cover it. I do not care if it takes 20 minutes to drive to my exercise class. I do not care. All I care about is making sure that I keep my health at the highest level I possibly can. And the fact that you guys are here on a Thursday night on Cinco de Mayo tells me that you're a 3%er. And as I go through today, you can make that choice to stay in this 3%. I promise you, over the next 10 years, we're going to start seeing more people coming over here, because this is just so incredibly broken. So the first thing that whenever you get up against a wall, I want you to say to yourself, when you get up against anybody going, why are you doing this? Why are you eating this way? Why do you want to detox? Why are you taking all those supplements? Why do you go to the chiropractor? I want you to remind yourself that you're not partaking in their mindset, that you're over here partaking in a different mindset, and a mindset that cures cancer. Right, Nadia? I mean, that's what every patient that I had that has reverse cancer has had to really step out of that model and come over here and be a 3%er. So, the first theory that I want to teach you is what I call the bucket theory. And I'm not a very good drawer, so I had to write out ahead of time, because otherwise I was not going to be able to do it on the fly. So I want to give you, before I get into the specifics of heavy metals, My staff is laughing at me. Thanks, guys. I want to give you sort of a big overview of what is happening to your health. And this is one of the things that is probably was the most eye-opening to me, is that you were all born with, let's just say, an empty bucket. And as you went along life, you were given more toxins, more traumas, more physical stress, and that bucket started to fill. The problem is that your bucket when you were born was different than the bucket that I had because we had different mothers. So everybody's bucket is completely different when you were born. So whether it's amalgam fillings, so I'm going to show you some things about amalgam fillings where they're showing that those get passed down into the baby. If you guys have watched the EWG TED Talk that I absolutely love, that, what's it called, 10 Americans. Look it up, it's called 10 Americans, and it basically showed that babies being born right now have over 200 cancer-causing harmful chemicals in them from the day they start. From the day they start. So from the day you were born, you had some level of your bucket was full of toxins. And as time went on, you maybe lived in a toxic household. We're going to talk about the houses a little bit today. You maybe had foods, maybe you were raised on toxic foods. One of the problems we have right now is the kids are raised on such toxic foods that it is really destroying their house or their body. Maybe you were given an enormous amount of vaccines, or maybe you were a sickly child and you were given a lot of medications. I now, with every new patient that comes in, I go all the way back to birth. I say, were you born by C-section? How many antibiotics have you been on? How many rounds of asthma, steroids? I go through all of that because I want to know what happened to your bucket early on. And as you're going through life, this bucket is starting to fill up more and more and more. And one day your bucket is like right at this edge. You feel okay, you don't feel wonderful, but then you get in a car accident. Or you go through something stressful like a divorce or a job loss, or you have a loved one that passes, or maybe you have a fall, or maybe you get exposed to some chemical, and all of a sudden your bucket overflows. And that one single event just takes all the toxins that have been building in your body and it flares it all up. And with that, what happens is that your body starts to go into this chronic inflammatory response. And I tell you that after I get done writing the Reset Factors recipe book, my next book that I want to write is called The Inflammation Switch. Because I believe that everybody has an inflammation switch that, like, you're going along life and then all of a sudden it's off, and then you have a horrible boss and it gets turned back on. And then you try to like exercise and eat well, so then you turn it off, and you're like, okay, I'm good again, and then all of a sudden you get in a car accident, and it turns back on. And so what's happening is everybody's at some point in their life, will start to turn on this chronic inflammation. And when you have chronic inflammation, it changes how your cell works. I'm going to show you this here in a second. And when your cell is not working right, you end up with all what we are calling the new diseases of the millennium, which is the thyroid, the autoimmune, the chronic fatigue, the anxiety, the depression. What's happening is that more people are being born with their buckets fuller and fuller, and they're getting more and more exposure to toxins. So kids, I mean, I can't tell you how many 20-year-olds I've had in the last 6 months pour into my office with thyroid, depression, and chronic fatigue. That has been like, I don't know if that's just like a common thing amongst 20-year-olds right now, but there are a ton of 20-year-olds out there that are walking around that are sick. So in order to change this whole cycle, you've got to start emptying your bucket. So that's what I'm going to teach you tonight, is how do you start to empty that? That's what the 45-day reset does for you, is it starts to empty it. But let me tell you what happens, is a lot of you guys empty it like to here, and you are like, well, I feel okay, I still don't feel great. And what I want you to understand is that everybody's bucket is filled to a different level. Everybody's got it, and I don't know how high your bucket is. I really don't know. I have my guesses. with each one, but what I got to do is start pulling out the water and trying to bring that down so that your health can balance back out again. The other interesting thing, and we're going to talk about the cell here in one moment, is that the cell is controlled by two things. It's really affected by four things. It's affected by the fats you eat, it's affected by your sugar levels, it's affected by toxins, and it is also affected by your spine. So you have some receptor sites at the very top part of your cervical spine. And when your spine loses its curve, when that upper cervical area goes out of balance, what happens is it triggers a response that goes to the cell and makes the cell start to function abnormally. This is why getting adjusted is so powerful. When you get adjusted, it's the direct access to that cell to turn that inflammation switch off. So that I wanted just to give you that overall, because I get questions a lot from you guys about when am I going to get well, how long is this going to take, what's going on with my body, and I want to tell you that I wish I had a crystal ball, but I don't. All I know is that everybody's bucket is a little bit different, and I don't know what your mom's bucket was like. I don't know what your mom started off life was, and she passed down to you. I do know that I'm going to show you at the end of tonight some testing that we can do to see how full that bucket is, and I'm trying to find answers so I can give people an idea of how full their bucket is. So this is something that I'm learning right now, is that if you want to get well, you're going to have to fix the cell. And you have 72 trillion cells in your body every single day, give or take a million here or there. And the cell, like I said, needs four things, but we're going to focus in on three things. Guys that go on the reset diet, what happens is you add all that good fat in and you give nourishment to this cell membrane. And this cell membrane is like a jellyfish. It needs to be pliable. If you have a long history of eating bad fats, what you've done is you've made that outer part of your cell rigid. You've made it like an egg, a casing on an egg. And we want it like a jellyfish. So if you're hearing this for the first time, I honestly think the number one thing you can do to change the cell's health is that you've got to switch your fats. You've got to go from the bad fats to the good fats. The second thing is that as sugar goes up in your body, so if you're doing a high sugar diet, that also will cause damage to the outside of the cell and will start to inflame it. So that's why the second thing we do for you is we have you take the grains out, we have you take sugar out, we have you take the things that are high in sugar out of your diet so that you can start to make this permeable again. And then the third thing, and what we're going to talk about tonight, are toxins. So if you have a high toxic load, if you aren't eating the right fats, and you have a high sugar content, what's happening is you're making the outside of this cell not porous. It's rigid. So no toxins can get out, and no nutrients can get in. So you can take a rigid, inflamed cell, and I can give you a multivitamin, and you are wasting your money. So what you've got to do is go in there and start to get that cell healing and healthy again. Just by a count of hands, how many people feel like you have a really good handle on the fats you're eating in your life right now? You're eating good fats and got rid of the bad ones. Okay, awesome. So if you are not, that has to be your number one thing, because we got to get that cell porous again. How many people feel like they have a good handle on sugar? Okay, and I
choose to.
Yeah, well, there is that. You guys that have been around for a while, we've been working on that over and over again. How many people feel like they have a good handle on the toxins that I've taught you? How many people feel like they've done really well with toxins? Okay, so you can see, so this is where we need a little more work. So the other thing I want you to know is that there are these things called receptor sites, okay? And what blocks these receptor sites are toxins. So if I am a hormone like T3, which is a thyroid hormone, I walk into my medical doctor's office, he takes a blood test and he says, you're low in T3, and so they put me on a medication What happens is that they didn't look to see if there was a reason that T3 didn't get into the cell. What was blocking T3 from getting into the cell? And what blocks T3 are the toxins I'm going to talk to you about tonight, or any hormone receptor. So this is very much like, do you guys remember back in the olden days when we had locks on our gas tank? And you know, sometimes if you forgot the key, like you'd have to go run home and find the other key so you could like go home, otherwise you can put gas in it, right? So what would happen in that moment if I was trying to get my gas tank off and I decide to take the gas pump? I'm like, oh, forget this, I just need to keep moving, and I pour the gas on top of the car. Would that allow my car to keep moving forward? No. So that's exactly what's happening in this cell, is that because we have been exposed to so many toxins that are blocked, what ends up happening is it doesn't matter how many hormones I give you, it only continues to block them even more. This is why you have people that have so many thyroid problems, because they start off by giving them a thyroid medication and then that doesn't work, so they give you another one and that doesn't work, and then they try to give you another one, eventually they go, well, the thyroid's not working, and they take it out. That's a really classic scenario, but they never looked at the receptor site. Same thing applies with leptin. So do you guys know what leptin is? How many people know what leptin is? Okay, so leptin was a hormone they discovered in 1990, and they figured out that leptin went from an area of fat up to the brain and told the brain to burn fat for energy. And so when they discovered leptin, they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. So if we could just give everybody a leptin pill, then we would have the cure for obesity. So they started to make a leptin pill. They ran a bunch of people through the protocol with the leptin pill, and nobody lost weight. And what they realized was that the reason it didn't work is because the leptin receptor site was not open. So you have to open these receptor sites, and the only way to do that is by detoxing. So that's what I'm going to go through and show you tonight. So I think the very first thing to ask, I go through a couple things, is what are the toxins that are destroying these receptor sites? And there's really three biggies. We're going to spend a lot of time on heavy metals tonight because I think you can have the biggest effect on those. So there are three. The number one, for you guys that can't see it, number one is heavy metals. I'll show you where you're getting those. Number two is mold. So if you've ever lived in a home that had any water damage, and you cleaned the water damage up, but you were either left with some black on there, or maybe you redid the walls, you still have been exposed to mold. So we have a test we'll show you that we can run to check your mold. But I know for me, when I was growing up, I grew up in LA, and my sister had terrible allergies. And in her house, and we were right by the ocean, so we had a really, there was a lot of humidity in our house all the time. But my sister had a tree that was right over the top of her room, and she had a ton of mold in her closet. And none of us had allergies, my parents or me, but my sister had a ton of allergies. So no doubt she was exposed to mold. And then the third thing are hidden infections. So hidden infections are root canals, cavitations, areas where they pulled a tooth out, but they don't get all of the bacteria when they pull it. And it's not a function of if you had a good dentist or you didn't have a good dentist. When you pull a tooth out, especially in a root canal, you do not get all of the bacteria out. You can ask any dentist and they will tell you that you do not get all of that out. It leaves a hidden infection in there. There are a ton of studies. Go research it, because this is one of those theories that nobody wants to believe me. But there is a connection between root canals and breast cancer. That's one of the things that they're finding right now. And you're going to walk into your dentist's office next time you see him or her, and you're going to say, what do you think of root canals and breast cancer? And they're going to go, that is ridiculous. So I've sat down with my dentist, who is not a homeopathic dentist. He is not a biological dentist. He is not slant on the holistic side at all. I happen to just like the guy. I don't even know why we're all there. But I asked him about that, and he said, you know, there's very much a possibility. I can see that. So there is a wave of dentistry that's being born right now, and it's called biological dentist. There is a group called the IAOMT. It's a website, and you can go and find yourself a biological dentist. There are dentists locally that are biological dentists, but again, I'm just pointing that out so that you can understand the big picture of where you're sick. If you have root canals, if you have cavitations, I don't want you running out and getting rid of them. And there are procedures that you can do to fix them. But I just want you right now, this is one of those topics I just want you to be aware of, and we'll discuss more as we go along. So, I think I talked, okay, let me go back to hidden infections for a minute. So for me, I'm just really being transparent tonight about my journey. But when I was in chiropractic school, I went into the dentist and had a cavity, and the dentist said, yeah, it's just a little cavity, we're going to take it out, don't worry, no big deal. And I, at the time, knew not to get amalgams, so I said, don't give me any amalgams, I just, you know, put the other, composite in there. I'm like, that'll be good. And in the process, something happened, they cracked the tooth. And I didn't realize it at the time, but a year later, the tooth started really acting up. And this dentist was really great because he said to me afterwards, he just said, you know, we made a mistake, we cracked the tooth, you really need a root canal right now. And I had just been listening and hearing a little bit about the theory around root canals. I knew they were bad, but I didn't quite understand completely. So I went to a friend of mine in Los Gatos who's a craniosacral chiropractor. And I said, okay, what should I do about this? And he said, whatever you do, don't get a root canal. Pull the tooth out. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I went and I had the tooth removed. And when I got it removed, the guy said to me, later on, you know, it's like end of my chiropractic school time. He said, later on, you can go put an implant in. Don't worry about it. Well, fast forward a couple of years, I went through two different things. And I'm just being transparent in my own journey. I got to a point when I started having this depression. I started to look at what was it? Was there something that I did? Is there some toxicity? And when I learned about cavitation, I started putting two to two together. The first thing that I changed was that I was using Crest toothpaste. And I thought, you know what? I have this hole right here. If I'm using a toxic toothpaste every day, putting that into the hole, sodium lauryl sulfate's going up into my brain, that cannot be good. So the first thing I changed was my toothpaste. And I kid you not, within a month of changing that, I started noticing a difference. Like I just noticed I'm not depressed. I don't have these waves of depression. So I feel for me, that was a huge thing. The other thing that I went through, and I know some of you are in process with this and some of you are thinking about it, is that I went through an Invisalign process. And I, to this day, am not sure if sitting with plastic in your mouth, especially if you have a cavitation, is the smartest idea. So I immediately stopped my Invisalign and thought, I'm not going forward with that because my health is more important than having a beautiful smile. It's just for me. So those two things made a tremendous difference for me with depression. That was what I noticed. Molds. Just to give you guys some of the symptoms that we're seeing with people who have been exposed to molds, sudden weight gain, an increase in pain, stiffness, fatigue, brain fog, irritability, digestive problems, mood disorders, and anxiety. So if you have any of these, again, at the end I'm going to show you how to test for it, but if any of these are chronic, I have not sat down with you and asked many of you and asked your history on mold, but you need to go back and look and see if you got some mold exposure. So the good news is that I'm going to show you there's a way to get that stuff out of you, but I want to give you reasons why you may not be losing weight as fast, why you may have been sick all these years, why you may have anxiety, why you may be depressed. It's because somewhere you had some accumulation of that, it started to fill your bucket. Okay, but the main thing that I want to talk about are heavy metals. And I want to start off by just showing you what the experts are saying, and then I want to walk you through where we're getting mercury. So who knows what the World Health Organization is? How many people know the World Health Organization? Okay, what's their job for us?
Protection.
Protection, right, thank you for saying that. Protect all of us, the world, right? Okay, so I couldn't memorize this, so I typed it up. This is what they say about mercury. They say that exposure to mercury, even in small amounts, may cause serious health problems and is a threat to the development of the child in utero and in early life. Second thing they say, mercury, Jessica!
Oh no.
What happened to my
She's coming.
powers that be?
I climbed the wall and wood.
They didn't want
The toxins got to
Say
it.
later.
No, it's the people that are hunting me down. Okay, the second thing is mercury may have a toxic effect on the nervous, digestive, and immune systems and on the lungs, kidneys, skin, and eyes. Mercury is considered by the World Health Organization as one of the top 10 chemicals or groups of chemicals of major public health concern. Okay, so where are we getting mercury? So there are 3 major places we get mercury. The first is from fish. I'm going to show you the different levels of fish that you guys need to avoid. The second is your mouth. And the third, the number one thing is flu shots, but it's really all vaccines. Another thing for mercury is thimerosal. Another word is thimerosal. They used to put it in contact lens solutions. So I had contacts when I was back in the 80s, and they used to put it in there. Now it's all, I think it's out of all contacts. But these are the 3 main ones. When you look, let's start with fish. When you look at fish, I'm just going to read a couple of the common ones that you guys may be eating that you really want to avoid immediately. So we all know, what's the number one that most people know? Tuna. Okay, so we want to avoid tuna. Okay, swordfish is on the high end. Salmon. So when you go out to a restaurant and you order salmon, do you look for wild or do you look for farm fresh? Wild. Okay, and when you go to Whole Foods and there's this beautiful pink salmon there and it's $20 a pound, and right next to it there's kind of a pinkish salmon and it's $10 a pound, which one do you get? Right. It's probably the wild one. So you ask. You say, which one's wild? So my daughter actually had threw up as a child from salmon. And I always wonder if there was, if she had a farm fresh salmon that had mercury and her body just got rid of it. Farm fresh salmon, swordfish, tuna, Chilean sea bass. That's a common one you see at restaurants a lot. These are the highest fish. You can just type in, if you Google mercury levels in fish, you can get this chart. I just wanted to show you the high ones.
What's on the low side?
Sardines, which are awesome, by the way, for omega-3s. Anybody like sardines?
No.
Nice! Okay, well, if you like sardines, I'm excited for you. Sole, tilapia, Arctic cod, butterfish, catfish, mackerel, shrimp, but shrimp's got another set of problems, so this is just mercury. Okay, this is the bottle that is found on the mercury in the dentist's office. Oh my gosh, it's a party. So I want to show you, I wish I could have found a better picture, but they wanted to see, because one of the complaints that the dentists have been using is they have been saying that it's inert, and that's what your dentist is going to say. When you go and that's awesome. Please get a picture of that. Oh my gosh, there's like a float and everything. So one of the things your dentist is going to say when you go and you ask about mercury. How many people have mercury fillings, just out of curiosity?
Not anymore.
I know, yeah. You all had them removed? You have one? Two. One. How many have had them removed? Yeah. Do they put them in people anymore? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. So this study was really interesting to me. They put fillings in a sheep, and then they had the sheep just chew and on the grass and just see what happened. And they went back after several months and they did a scan of the sheep and they found mercury. Oh, God, I am really struggling with my technology. They found mercury in the stomach. Jessica. They found mercury in the liver. They found mercury in the kidneys. They found mercury in the jaw area, of course. You would expect that. So when you chew, what you're doing is you're breaking that down. When you put hot in there, you're liquefying it and getting it out. So one of the things that we know about mercury is that it goes into the brain and it blocks the receptor sites in the pituitary and the receptor sites in the hypothalamus. What is your pituitary control? Anybody know? Everything, all hormones, but there's two things that it really controls. One is your adrenals. How many people feel tired no matter what you do? So a lot of times people who are adrenal fatigued have some mercury in the pituitary that needs to come out. The second thing is it'll go into the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is the master control center of all hormones. So if you have any hormonal issue, you've got to look at the possibility of mercury, high levels of mercury in your body, because even if you got them out, you were chewing, a lot of times that'll stay in the pituitary, it'll stay in the hypothalamus for years until you actually do something about it. So the other interesting thing now, I want you to think back to what the World Health Organization said about how dangerous mercury is. So the tendency in a talk like this is that you're going to want to go home and you're going to never eat tuna again, which is great. It's fine. You're going to be like, tuna's bad. You're going to tell everybody tuna's bad. Stop eating tuna. You're going to be like, anybody, I don't know if anybody saw my video on Facebook this morning, but I put what people that are gluten intolerant and how they dominate the world and they control everybody because they can walk into a party and say, I'm gluten intolerant, and everybody bows down to them. So if you're friends with me on Facebook, find it. It was a funny video. Well, so a lot of you are going to do that when you become real righteous about tuna. So to give you some idea, in our water we have 2 parts per billion of mercury they found in the water. You've got, in tuna, you've got 250 parts per billion. In the worst white fish that they ever measured, the most toxic amount of mercury in a fish they ever measured was 500 parts per billion. And in one flu shot, there is 51,000 parts per billion of mercury. I do not, if there is one thing that you learned from me today and breaks my heart bigger than anything, is that that belief that you're going to get the flu if you don't get the flu shot. I haven't had a cold in 10 years, and I've never had a flu shot. My family has never had the flu shot. My kids never had a cold all the way through elementary school. I promise you, you will not get the flu if you don't get the flu shot. And the flu shot, what they're now saying is that when people take the flu shot, and they get it 5 years in a row, they increase their chance of Alzheimer's by 10 times. Oh. And right now, our seniors, they're saying 1 out of 1, I don't know how the statistics work on that, but almost all of our seniors have dementia or Alzheimer's. So when you go to Walgreens and they have a sign there and they say, we will give you 10% off on your next purchase if you get the flu shot today, I implore you to please do the research. You are destroying your health with the flu shot. And I do not know another way. It literally breaks my heart because people are getting themselves so sick from taking the flu shot. We also are seeing this in vaccines. And I want to start off by saying I am not an anti-vaxxer. I am anti-toxins in those frickin' vaccines. Can we stop putting toxins in the vaccines? So when I was a child, 1983. I graduated high school in 1987. So this would have been about my time. There were a total of 10 shots for kids, for me total. So I remember my mom showing me my vaccine records. I want to say it was even like 5 or 7 shots. Right now, this was 2008. We have 36. That was 2008. We have 36 shots of shots that kids need to get. And they just upped it that by the time you get to the 7th grade, they just upped it 74 shots. So all that I'm asking, this is a super personal issue. I totally get where this is where you get irate and you want to go to your doctor and you want to say the doctor that you trust, you want to go to them and say, why? And they're going to give you a different side. You have to do your own research. You have to do your own research. But the mercury amounts and what we're doing to kids, and if you're not convinced, when we look at autism, in 1970, we had 1 out of 10,000 cases of autism. And now, here we are in 2013, we have 1 out of 50. What has changed in that time period? And it's not just vaccines. It's all of the toxins. I'm going to show you some stuff in water. It's the stuff in the mouth. I'm not just blaming vaccines, but I do not understand why they can't make a toxic-free vaccine. Why can't they just make it toxic-free? And right now, SB 277 passed last year, and all kids have to get vaccinated in the state of California. You can ask my staff when that passed was the most depressing time, and part of what motivated me to understand how to remove heavy metal, because I realized, oh my God, if every child is going to be vaccinated, I need, as a leader in my community, I need to know how to remove this for kids. Because it's not acceptable to me to have this. And if that doesn't freak you out even more, they're now saying that if the trajectory continues, if we continue at this pace, if we continue going at this pace, that by 2032, 1 out of 2 children will have autism. And so some of you are going to say, well, I thought they disproved that autism thing in Mercury. That's not right. Go do your research. They just found out there was one major study done. There were several, but one of the best studies ever done on autism. They came out of there and they said, no, vaccines do not cause autism. And here we are 3-4 years after that study, and the top chief scientists on that study reached out and said, I was told to throw away statistical evidence that proved that we were seeing a large group, 34%, something like that, that were autistic from vaccines. So again, don't walk around and go, my chiropractor said to do this, and this. You go empower yourself. But this is what we're seeing in our children right now. Mercury has been banned in almost every other country but ours, just like genetically modified foods. France just came out and said that they are no longer mandatory, they no longer have a mandatory vaccine schedule. And you can go into this would be one of my recommendations for parents, is you can go into your pediatrician and you can ask for mercury-free vaccines. I highly recommend you do it. The first time with my son, I went to the pediatrician, I asked for it, he laughed at me. And I said, my son's 14 now, I said, well, when you get mercury-free vaccines, I'll come back. And when I came back, he said, oh, we have them now. And then I went down the other chemicals that were in a vaccine and asked him if he could remove those, and he said no. And so I said, I'm not going to put that into my child. If you don't believe me, just type in CDC and type in what's in a vaccine. I got this off the CDC's website. This is their information. This is what's in a vaccine. And if you're curious, all the highlights, just so you can see, that's all aluminum that's highlighted in there. But there literally is pesticides, herbicides, formaldehyde, mercury, aluminum, DNA from monkeys, DNA from bovine. You'll see it, it's all in there. So it's not a secret. So what does mercury toxicity do to us? You tell me if we have a generation of this. Depression, fatigue, anxiety, forgetfulness, digestive problems, irritability, sensitivity to sound, brain fog, insomnia, unexplained anger. Anybody read in the Mercury News, there was an article that came out a couple weeks ago that said our teens right now are the most depressed generation of teens they have ever seen. Now, part of that, my theory, because it's not all, we can't blame, oh gosh, you're going to have to get that off the floor for me, is that we can't blame it all on vaccines. We can't blame it all on flu shots. We can't blame it all on fish, but it's their buckets. These kids' buckets are so high, and how many people have a teen? I'm like blown away at the amount of homework my child has, the amount of pressure, what it takes to get into college. Like, all it does is take a couple of drops and now you've overloaded a teenage brain, and of course you have depression and anxiety. So I want to show you how many people have heard of, oh wait, let me back up. We're going to go through lead in a second. So any questions on mercury, just really quick before I move on? Okay. The second toxin that we have is lead, and there are 3 areas that you are getting lead. So one is from your mother. So lead comes down 4 generations. So if your mother had lead and your grandmother had lead and her mother had lead, you probably have lead. The second one is in our water, and the third is in our beauty products, primarily lipstick. So how many people have heard of Flint, Michigan? Okay, what happened there? Anybody want to say? What happened in Flint, Michigan?
They ran untreated water through the lead pipes and corroded the lead out of the pipes and put it into the water.
Okay, here we go. Here's a little thing on Flint.
They changed the water source.
Uh-oh. How will I, where's the speaker? Oh, hold on. I need tech help. It's in the TV somewhere. Wherever the speaker
And you
comes
have
from.
one slide that's missed. Like next to
No,
it.
it's okay. I just want to. I want the volume.
Oh. Right here.
Perfect.
The parents of children in Flint, Michigan have good reason to be worried.
There's real danger that the injury is going to be permanent and lifelong in them.
Dr. Philip Landrigan is Dean of Global Health at Mount Sinai School of Medicine. He's been studying the effects of lead since the 70s.
The problem here is that no level of lead is safe. Even low levels of lead, especially if exposure to low levels continues over many months, is going to cause some degree of brain damage to at least
A number of problems, including lower IQ scores, developmental delays, and behavioral issues such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Even after lead exposure stops, the effects can last for years or even be permanent. In Flint, Michigan, a major challenge will be identifying which children are at risk, then tracking them for many years for evidence of injury.
these children are going to be injured for life. They're going to need remedial education. They're going to need educational enrichment programs. They're kids who may be prevented from functioning at their full level.
There are no known effective drugs to reverse the developmental damage caused by lead. Something called chelation therapy can remove lead from the body, but so far it has not been helpful in treating the behavioral or neurological problems caused by lead.
Dr. John Lapoot. Thank you, Doc.
We're going to show you a way to pull lead out. So when I first heard about Flint, honestly, I had my, my head was in other stuff, and I thought, oh, well, that's kind of sad for Flint. And then I went to a nutrition seminar. Jessica and I went to a seminar in Atlanta, and the speaker said the second highest place for lead in the water is California. And I thought, we looked at each other, and I was like, really? And so my husband is my environmental man. He knows everything about the environment in this area. And so I ran it past him, and he says, I don't know, why don't we look it up? So we looked it up. We typed in San Jose drinking water. And what I found was that in our drinking water, we have 15 chemicals that exceed the health guidelines, one of which is lead, and one of which is arsenic. So just to give you some idea, the national average for chemicals that exceed the health guidelines is 4. In San Jose, we have 15. So we also found that pollutants, there were 35 pollutants in our water. The national average is 8. So again, I'm not trying to bum you guys out. I'm just trying to show you why you may not be healing, why you may be sick, is it's an accumulation of all these things. I'm going to show you that you can pull this stuff out. We can test for it. But this is where a whole house filter would be fantastic. We haven't personally done that for ourselves, but that will be high on our next list. is to actually start to, we have one at the sink that we do that starts to pull it out. I didn't have time for this event, but if you guys follow me on social media, if you are getting my emails, I promise you over the next week, I will get out good water filters so that you guys have the idea, you know what you can do if you want to take action on getting that water out. We talked about your mother probably gave you lead, and then the third place is that your beauty products. So how many people have the Think Dirty app? Okay, if you don't have the Think Dirty app, you all need the Think Dirty app. You can do that, or you can do the cosmetics, or the, why am I forgetting it?
Working environment.
Skin Deep. So you can do one of those too. I went into Whole Foods the other day. My daughter wanted some chapstick, and I'm just obsessed with it now, especially anything that goes on your lips. So I just went through and scanned all the chapsticks, and it took me some time to find one that was a 1 or a 2. Many of in Whole Foods, many of them were like 4, 5, 6. So you can't. And if you find one brand, you can't just be like, oh well, I found that brand is always great. You got to scan everything. So this is where once you've done your homework on your beauty products, you're going to stick with that and just stay with those. So, but if you wear lipstick, the thing that we worry about lipstick is right next to your mouth. It's getting in your mouth. And so just so you guys can see, Max Factor is one of the highest. What's that one? I'm not a lipstick wearer, so I might not be the right one to ask. Ivoe, L'Oreal, Revlon, Maybelline, Streetwear, and Chambord are some of the highest.
I have a quick question. I mean, it seems like people, like they're trying to poison us, but is there like something, like, is there a quality of mercury or aluminum that actually makes lipstick stick on your lips better, or does mercury like make the vaccines actually work better, or
how many people have natural eyeliner or mascara? How many people wear natural eyeliner or mascara? Nobody? Well, how many people wear mascara? Okay, you're not doing natural? Okay, and again, I'm not the expert on makeup, but when I wear the natural stuff, by the end of the day, it's kind of dripping down here. So I know if I go and buy the Maybelline and I put it on, I'm good for the whole day.
The whole week.
The whole week. I'm not doing like this every 2 seconds. So there's something they're putting in there. The problem is that there's no guidelines. They're not held to any regulation. You know, Johnson & Johnson, the No More Tears, the Breast Cancer Fund had to take them to court to get that No More Tears piece out. They were like, yeah, we know it's carcinogenic, but it's our signature thing. It's what makes it No More Tears. And so the Breast Cancer Fund went and actually took them to court to take it out. Wow. So I think it's not like they're trying to poison us. They just have a formula that works and it makes them a lot of money, and they don't want to change it. So that's what we kind of have with a lot of these. So symptoms, again, you're going to start to see a common theory here is symptoms of lead poisoning is irritability, loss of appetite, sluggishness and fatigue, abdominal pain, constipation, learning difficulties, that's in kids. We've got adults, high blood pressure, declining mental function, pain and numbness in your hands, muscular weakness, abdominal pain, mood disorders, memory loss, and infertility. So again, you're seeing common threads through all of these heavy metals. And these are, I mean, how many people know people who have those symptoms? Right? Everybody. So this is why I bring it to your attention. The other thing to know about lead is that lead gets stored in your bone, and it actually comes out of the bone for women at 3 different times when hormones change. So it leaks out of the bone at puberty, it leaks out of the bone when you're pregnant, and it leaks out of the bone at menopause. So those 10, if you look back on your life, you know, is it possible that you had some lead in you that came out when you went through puberty? A lot of women I see go through pregnancy and then they kind of are not functioning well right after pregnancy. And then we have a whole culture full of menopause women that are crazy. So I'll put myself in that category. So anyway, so those are the symptoms of lead. Okay, the last metal I'm going to talk about is aluminum. The big ones that I want you to know is sunscreen. So you have to do the Think Dirty app. I'm personally not a fan of any sunscreen. I put a hat on, I stay in the shade. That's my sunscreen. I think that's the best. Now, I don't have super fine skin, so those of you that will burn in the sun, there are natural ones. I don't know if you know a good natural one at Whole Foods, Beth.
There's a lot. They have the zinc oxide that's clear now, so it doesn't show.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so what in the past, what she's referring to is the sunscreen that you put on and you thought it was like a trick sunscreen. And you're like, why is it not going in? I look like a white ghost. That was the kind you wanted because that's the zinc oxide kind, but it sounds like maybe it's now clear. So that's great.
What's that called?
Burnout is one of the brands that's really good. There's one called Live Strong. That's really good too. There's a bunch that are good. They can help you find it.
Awesome. Beth is our Whole Foods expert, so she's been working there forever. So, but when you're spraying this on your kids, that's up next to the flu shot. That's the second thing I want you to stop with your children. Stop spraying on them. Like put a hat on them, go get that stuff, but don't spray. Anything that goes on the skin goes right into the kidneys. We already saw that the kidneys is accumulating the toxins from the teeth. So again, we've got aluminum in our vaccines and we've got aluminum in our personal care products. So you've got to look at all of those. The other place that you're getting aluminum from is some of your baking powders. So baking powder, self-rising flour, coffee creamers. If you're doing any of the coffee creamers, this is why I'm such a non-fan of coffee creamers. Baked goods and processed foods, anything that says red dye number 4 on it or a red dye of any kind, that's got aluminum in it. Certain drugs, antacids, analgesics and antidiarrheals, vaccines we know have it, cosmetics can have it, and then of course your aluminum foil, Capri Suns, I don't know what's in that, and deodorant. Deodorant, if you haven't switched over to natural deodorant, you need to make the jump. I love the one we have here. Has anybody tried it? It works. So they'll tell you the brand. I found her at the farmer's market, and she told me, "Oh, one apply, you'll be good." And I laughed, and I said, "I don't believe that. Usually with natural, you have to apply like 10 times, and then you're good for the day." And sure enough, she's right. It really works well. It just doesn't have the same consistency as a regular deodorant, but putting aluminum on a lymph system that's going to go directly into your breast is not a good idea. So we're talking about the brain and how do we get your brain functioning right, but I don't think for breast cancer in general, if you want to prevent that, and men are getting breast cancer too, you really need to look at that deodorant. So this is why if you do organic, you get most of this out of you. So what we know about Alzheimer's right now is that there is a link between aluminum and mercury to Alzheimer's. What we are seeing right now is that it's the fastest, Alzheimer's and dementia is the fastest growing disease in our culture. They're now saying that they're worried about Alzheimer's in people over 40, over 60. No, but they're calling it pre-dementia for people in 40. So if you have short-term memory loss, if you have forgetfulness, they're now saying they have a new category called pre-dementia. Now this is why I wanted to go through toxins with you guys, is that think about back to your childhood. When you were a child, the people who had cancer and heart disease were like old people, right? I mean, that was like, we were like, oh, grandma's friend had cancer, and yeah, she looked like she should have cancer, right? And now, right, she just looked like she was on her way out. And now when we look, now it's like the 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and when that first happened, we were like, what? That's crazy. And now, do you know the fastest growing age is the kids? That they are the ones getting cancer. So it's the same thing we're seeing now with Alzheimer's. And the crazy thing with Alzheimer's is that they have stopped looking, well, this is probably good, but they've stopped looking for a cure. There were several drug companies, one of which is Pfizer, one of which is Johnson & Johnson, that has pulled looking for a cure because they cannot, all the drug trials is taking so much money of their money and they're getting nowhere. So they cannot find a cure for Alzheimer's. Well, if you read my book, I am adamant that you cannot solve a toxic problem in the body with more toxins. So this is pure example of why that is happening. And we know that the heavy metals can lead to things like dementia, and it may not be like what you think, where grandma doesn't recognize you when you walk in the door. Dementia, what happens with the heavy metals is it inflames your brain, it affects your serotonin and dopamine production, so it affects how happy you are. It can, when you get exposed to heavy metals, it can kill good bacteria, and it can shut off cholesterol production in your body. Where does cholesterol go in our body that it's helpful? Your brain. So one of the theories that's battling around with Alzheimer's and dementia right now is that you've got that age group was brought up on a low-fat diet. They were brought up on statin drugs, where the liver completely shuts off all production of cholesterol, and they have no fat in there, and now they're getting exposed to toxins. And so of course, that's why they hit that point. So, and they, like I said, they're now saying that because of the increase in aluminum and the increase in mercury, that we're seeing it in 40-year-olds. I'm going to show you guys this one. This is interesting.
Alzheimer's disease when she was 55 years old. How long ago was that?
That was almost 5 years ago.
Did she survive?
Yes, she's 59 now. She was a teacher her whole life and had to retire at 57. And now my dad, who retired also to take care of her, and now they, just deal with it every day.
Is she home?
Yes, she's home. Yeah, they live at home together, and he, does everything. He cooks and cleans. He does her hair every morning. And
How did you discover it at 55? You'd have never thought of it, right?
well, no, actually, both of her parents, my grandparents, both had it. Her dad, my grandfather, was diagnosed. I'm not quite sure because I was young, but I remember my aunt and uncle have said they saw signs when he was in his 50s as well, and he passed away in his early 70s. And then my grandmother passed away less than 10 years ago, I guess, from the disease. So when my mom started to show these symptoms, it was pretty clear. She'd forget a story that I told her, forget that she spoke with someone, so it was pretty clear to us what was going on.
Did you know her mom through all of this?
When I met Lauren, which was around 6 years ago, was really the beginning, I think, of when people started noticing a difference. But even I could see a drastic difference in the first few times I met her. Honestly, her ability to verbalize things was the thing that I noticed was the most affected. Her ability to literally access words was really affected by it.
Are you angry about it?
Very. It's pretty unfair. But, I think the things that make me angry are that, unfortunately, this disease gets very little attention, especially with people, that are our age. They know very little about it. And I think that, if we all come together, then we can find a cure, and there will be no need to be so angry about it.
Yeah. Because, you're in your 20s. How many kids in their 20s have to deal with it?
Yeah.
Not many.
Not many. I think when you're young, your grandparents are old, and you just kind of associate all this stuff to like old people problems, and you don't really have any personal connection to it. But as you get older and you see it happening to your parents, and ultimately realize it could happen to yourself and your friends, it becomes much more real and not some imaginary old person problem.
You're worried about getting it?
Of course I am.
Have you taken any tests for it?
No, I think I'm not going to do that because I don't, unless there's a cure, unless there's a treatment for me to get, I don't need to know that now.
So the cure is just like cancer. It's not getting it in the first place. It's just like cancer. The cure for cancer is what caused cancer. So that's why I bring this to your attention, is we've got to get these metals identified in you guys and give you a strategy to get them out. How many people have a family history of Alzheimer's or dementia? Yeah. So for you, it becomes even more important. The last toxin I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to really go into the solution. The last toxin is, unfortunately, is glyphosate. What's glyphosate?
Roundup.
Roundup. Where are we getting glyphosate?
Food.
The foods. Wheat. So glyphosate is what they spray on conventional grains. They also spray it on soy crops. They spray it on corn. They spray it on sugar crops, non-organic sugar crops. And so what they're finding right now is that the increase in dementia has also gone up at the same rate that the increase of glyphosate has gone up. And so what they're finding is that glyphosate, there's something about glyphosate that hooks onto mercury and aluminum and accelerates the damage. Now remember that what glyphosate does is it creates microholes in your abdomen, so in your intestinal area, so that toxins and undigested food can get into your body. And it goes straight up to the brain. This is why I am obsessed on your gut. We have to fix your gut if we're going to stop these toxins from getting in. So this is a perfect example. They have done tests, and everybody they test, every human they've ever tested has had in blood and urine some version of glyphosate. Even somebody like me or you guys that eat really well, when you eat out, you're getting non-organic food and you're getting glyphosate. They just found glyphosate, and I'm so sorry to report this, in California wines, that they tested many different California wines. So it's time to drink French wine. They're finding it, the typical American, if you walk into a McDonald's, you're getting wheat that's been sprayed with Roundup, you're getting corn syrup that's genetically modified, you're getting soy protein isolate that's genetically modified, you're getting the cows have been fed genetically modified corn. The list goes on and on. So can you see why we are suffering and we're so sick? We have so much metal exposure, and then we fuel it with the glyphosate. So a couple of key things with glyphosate. I really implore you to go completely GMO free. In my house, a genetically modified food is not allowed in my front door. So in my house, we are very strict on that. When I go out to eat, it becomes more difficult. But we spend a lot of time getting dinner at Whole Foods if we don't want to cook, because even if I go to the Thai cuisine down the corner and I try to order something good, it's all genetically modified. So, but if you like protein bars, if you're doing protein powders, you need to look for soy protein isolate, and you need to look for textured vegetable protein. That is genetically modified and is packed with glyphosate. Right now they're trying to do a whole move to get women to stop breastfeeding, which is crazy. But soy-based proteins, it is affecting, it also is sprayed with glyphosate, so we're putting this crap into our infants. And then with our seniors, we're putting this Ensure in. So, which, by the way, you'd have to read all the ingredients, but just to give you some idea, Ensure, this is, for an ailing senior who needs nutrition. What they do is they give them Ensure that has corn maltodextrin, soy oil, soy protein isolate, corn oil, whey protein concentrate, and soy lecithin, which is all sprayed with glyphosate. That was the one thing that when Lanny was in the hospital a couple of months before she passed, I was like, they kept trying to give her this. And I mean, here's a woman that's dying of cancer, and I was like at the door, and I was like, no. And I told several of the nurses, I'm like, don't bring that crap in here anymore. And I went to Whole Foods and got a natural version called Organics. You can find a really good one there. But I was just appalled that here is a woman dying of cancer, and you want to put that crap in her. They just don't have any idea. So you have to think you can't fix your gut without eliminating glyphosate. So if you're really struggling, you're like, I still have digestive problems, I'm still holding on to weight, I still have brain fog, I still have fatigue, we got to look at how, again, that we pull the glyphosate and stop putting it into your body. And then again, what's near and dear to my heart is helping you guys not get cancer. So can you see when they say 95% of cancers are environmental and lifestyle? Can you see why? And this is stuff you haven't even heard. This isn't even like your basic food. This is stuff we're exposed to. So we've got to come up with different solutions. So this has been part of my journey, as I've been trying to figure out how to test you guys without it costing an arm and a leg. Like, how can I get you tests where we could go and we could look at if you have aluminum, we could go and look if you have lead, if you have mercury, we could look at if your cells were inflamed, we could look at your mold levels, because mold changes vision, so we could do some tests there. We have a questionnaire that we now have all of our new patients as of this week, are starting to fill out this questionnaire. And we have a really specific adrenal test that we do on people to see if they're adrenal fatigued. So all of this is our new protocol that we do in the office. So if you are not a patient and you want to get all of this with the x-ray, the cost today only is $157 to get all of those tests. If you guys are a patient, you already have your x-rays, you don't need those x-rays again, it's only $97. And now I am giving you everything at cost. I am just giving it to you because I want you to see what's going on. So this price will go up. If at the end of tonight, let Jessica or Dana know you want to do the testing, and we'll take you through the protocol and we'll show you what's going on. Once you identify that there's a problem, there's a very specific way to detox this stuff. And it starts by, you got to prepare your body to, so it's not like the guy said, oh, you can't detox it through chelation. That's right. You got to take a several month process to start to detoxify it. So there's a prep phase that we will put you through where it's going to be diet and it's going to be some supplements to get your body prepared. Then we're going to start to work on your liver so that as we pull the heavy metals out of your brain, your liver and your gut can handle it. And then the last step is that we will actually give you supplements that will get in there, and it will bind to mercury, it will bind to lead, it will bind to the mold, and it'll attach to it and get it out of you. This is the one thing we did not do for Lanny, Nadia. That's the one, I've racked my brain over and over again. What did I not do for her? And this was the one thing we didn't do. So I want, from the bottom of my heart, I want you all to do the test so I can help you, so I can tell you if you've got these toxins building up in your body. Many of you, I've got you guys on plans. Get the test and we'll figure out where it fits in the plan. I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I'm trying to give you more tools so that you don't have to be over in this 97% suffering. And when you're at a place where you're like, I'm frustrated, I don't understand why I'm not getting well. I went on the 45-day reset. I'm not feeling like I wanted to feel. I've been coming and getting adjusted. I'm feeling better, but I'm not feeling fabulous. If you're one of those people, this is the leftover piece we have to do. The cool thing is that I've partnered with an organization that has a whole protocol that will walk you through it. There's a whole back office that will show you how to emotionally detox. It'll give you exercises, brain exercises that will help you as we start to pull the toxins out. This is the best protocol I have ever seen, which is why I took tonight to show you what the damage is and show you that you can actually change that. So if you're interested, let my gals know up front and they will tell you how to go through all of that. I want to end with this. I still truly believe, and I keep trying to unconvince myself and prove myself wrong, is that if you want to reset your health, you have to look at your spine first and get your spine and get pressure off that nervous system. That has to be numero uno. If your spine is damaged, I can give you the fanciest detox system and it will not work properly. You have to get the pressure off. You've got to fix your gut, and then you've got to get this toxic load off. I know it's complicated. It's sure a lot easier to walk into the medical doctor office and get a prescription and walk out and pray that that's the answer. But I promise you, I have been doing this forever. This is the answer. I do not see another answer that's needed at this point. This is the answer. I would never take you down a road I did not think was going to get you well. There's just a lot of pieces because a lot of you have this bucket really, really full. So the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with is to give you some idea. If we do all the neurotoxic testing on you, we're going to send you a very thorough questionnaire either tonight, I don't know if Jessica's doing it tonight or tomorrow, but this was a summary of it. So to give you some idea, how many people scored 0 to 50? Okay, so 0 to 50 is about moderate. You should still get the test and see, but it's not over the top. How many people were in between 50 to 100? Okay, just to get, this is my night to be transparent. Mine was 78.
Really?
Yes. So that's why I show you that. But there, you know, I got my mom, I got my environment, I got all that stuff. So I'm now in the process of doing everything I'm teaching you. So if you're between 50 or 100, you absolutely need to pull these toxins out. There's no, I don't think you can get well without doing this 100% well. And if anybody over 100 that's willing to admit it, if you're over 100, that's extreme neurotoxicity. We've got to do something. So that gives you an idea about the range on it. You all have my email. If you have any questions, you know, email me. Let me tell you one other thing before everybody gets up and leaves. I have 2 events coming up. So one event is that I'm doing what I call mastering your crazy busy lifestyle. How many people have a crazy busy lifestyle? Okay, so I'm going to teach you. I have a ridiculously crazy busy lifestyle. I've got 2 kids. I've got to practice. I just wrote a book. I got another book that is going to the editor next week. I work out. I eat well. I'm a wife. I do everything. Every moment of my day, I maximize. And I'm going to teach you what I do, and I'm going to show you how to keep your adrenals at the highest level possible so you have the energy to do that. So that's in May. And then in June, we have to do a talk on the thyroid. Too many of you have thyroid problems. It's on June 16th. We are going to do a talk in here on thyroid. Please tell everybody you know that has a thyroid issue. My mission this year is to get people off their thyroid medication, stop getting them pulling these thyroids out, and show you how you can save your thyroid and get your energy and your moods and lose weight and your libido, and all of that can come back when you get that thyroid strong again. Okay? With that, was this helpful?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Well, I mean, on certain things, like, sometimes I'll be like, oh, you got right. It's not everybody. Sure.
I wouldn't, again, I think we would do that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Do you have yeah. So that's the kind of stuff we want to track now before, right. Right? I mean, that's the whole name of the game. You and I are meeting tomorrow, right?
Yes, everybody's not. But I want to introduce you to someone that I love very much.
Oh. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
You learned something.
No. Oh, yeah. Now, all I need to do is take that and give it to my husband's me. Right. So thank you. This huge chemical.
Oh. Yeah, we taped it. We recorded it.
Oh, good.
It's on the Periscope right now. Yeah, and then we're put it on my YouTube station. And then my goal was see how everybody, again, I was apprehensive to give it because it's really overwhelming. But if people do well with the information, every other month I'll do that same. So
Especially because he's the one who's going to be paying for the test.
Right.
So I wanted to get the guy on board.
Do you have kids?
Yeah.
How many?
Yeah, five. So I'm kind of like choked up.
So the one thing I didn't say was blood-brain barrier doesn't so that makes and that's you gotta wait until that's closed. And once that closes, then the body
So how do you get
So we're trying to figure out some solutions on that. I think if you can ask for them without the thimerosal in them, you can get that thimerosal, and that's the most important thing. You may get resistance, so you just gotta bounce off and find somebody who want to do it. The other ones that you need to look out for are the MMR and the DPT, because there's 3 different trivalent vaccines. And the trivalent vaccines, that's where we're seeing the highest autistic rates. So you can get monovalent ones. What I would do is ask them and say, I would like the mumps this month, and I will come back next month, and I will get the measles, and then I will come back the next month, and then I will do the rubella. Spread them out.
Yeah. And I was breaking my heart. I'm like, there's no way. I just split it up for 2, but I wish I had split it up more. But there's no way that her little body is thinking, I know what I was doing. But I'm like, I can't possibly be like, orange taste. Like, literally, like, they're just crying, and then you're like, how are you still from? And then I just make it. My kids are the nurse. My kids all have it. It's not mom. Right, yeah.